Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Process Podcast.
Ant, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Although you might hear a bit of a scraping because I can't get in my house at the moment because Tammy has got COVID, which means judging by going by the government regulations, I'm not allowed to be a close contact. Otherwise, I have to self-isolate for 7 days as well, until from the day of me being in there. So I'm growing out a early Movember right now, and I don't really have a choice. But otherwise, yes, I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. I feel like, by the way, you scratch whatever is on your chin every episode that you record anyway. So I feel like if this has nothing to do with Tammy having COVID and you not being able to, can you stop doing that, please?
Yeah, I was going to say that's giving me a higher chance of getting COVID by rubbing my mouth on a microphone.
We actually pretty much have most of our team going down with COVID right now.
We do.
Yeah, it's doing the rounds.
Although we did have 7 of the 13 of us in here.
Yeah.
It's 7 people who hadn't had it yet, which is pretty impressive. That it's been going around for almost over 3 years and no one got it. Those 7 hadn't got it yet. But yeah.
So how's it not being able to get into your house? You've been staying with...
Honestly, it's a bit shit. I mean, I'm staying... this is now the second time because last time Tammy was a close contact with someone else. And at that time, if you were a close contact, then the person that you were living with had to then vacate the house or you would go somewhere else. And me just being a good person left the house and let Tammy stay in the house.
So no
I mean, it does make sense. We got a gym and stuff on the roof, and I know she'd go stir crazy if she didn't have it and the food and everything. So I moved out and I moved in with our helper. For those that know what helper is, it's our nanny we've had for 35, 36 years. It's legend Hilda. So I went and stayed with her last time, and that's where I am again now. Basically booted her out of her own bed because her sofa bed only goes up to my knees, and she's like 4 foot nothing. So yeah, she's sleeping on that in the living room, and yeah, that's it. So nice. I'll be back hopefully once she tests negative, turns in I believe 2 negative rat tests, then I can go back to my house. But yeah, it's not ideal, and I also have to cover her 5 a.m. class this morning, which also was not ideal.
You're looking very alive though.
Yeah, I actually feel okay. I've been actually going to bed. I sound more and more like you, but like I went to bed like 7:30 last night.
Nothing wrong with that, by the way.
I went to bed at 7:30 last night and actually got decent night kip. So yeah, that's fine.
You didn't have the classic 5:15 wake ups where you're
panicking about the alarm.
9, 10.
I actually didn't
11.
even think about it, to be honest.
That's good.
Normally I would. It's actually just any change in the schedule. Yeah. I'll get that. But no, not last night really. I did wake up once. But yeah, I fell asleep pretty quick. Didn't even look at the phone.
Nice. Well, and last time you were on the podcast, we were reflecting on the semi-finals. Mm-hmm. It was quite short after semi-finals, actually. It wasn't too long, and you were busy. You were very busy at the time. You were kind of basically transitioned straight from the semi-finals, last chance qualifier, taking Lee Coates to CrossFit Games, and then Lee Coates wrapping up second place in an age division. I bet that was an amazing experience. Yeah. My first question is, thinking back to that podcast and the reflections that you had on your season to that point, has there been any other realizations? Have you sat down to reflect any further? Was there anything from that conversation that you kind of sat and thought about more?
In terms of training, in terms of like my life, or
anything?
Yeah, I guess like one of the biggest realizations, which I kind of spoke about in it, was, the importance of training, but also the insignificance of training to me. Like, in the grand scheme of things, like I'm definitely getting older. How old am I? 33. I'm 33 now. And although I dedicate so much time to training and what I do in my craft, it's only, let's say, 4 hours of every single day that I got. I still got another 20 hours where I can make a big impact, whether it's, in my relationships with my girlfriend, with my family, with my friends, or whether it's doing my job. So, although it is massively important to me, I think what I was doing before, and, this has probably been like a few years in the realization, but I was just putting too much into the performance, into the training, into the CrossFit, into the competitions, where actually I could still give that 110%, but I also need to give, 100%, 110% to the other parts of my life, which I wasn't doing. I think I was like, no, I need to give so much to that I need to take away from this stuff. And, at the time I didn't realize it and it didn't affect me. But looking back at it now and, speaking about how I did before, I guess I kind of opened up a little bit on how I felt, and yeah, just realized that I basically need to pour as much energy that I do into the competing and training side of things, and the athlete side of things, and then into actually my own life as well, which is the work and the social and like the relationship side of things.
Why do you say that?
Well, just more. It was more from the negative impact that people had mentioned that I'd caused them, which I didn't realize. And that's never nice to hear from anyone.
What were some of those things?
Just like things like just again like not people like feeling that they're not loved, that they're not cared for. Even when to me I was like, oh well, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, why do you feel that? Like, I feel the same. But again, like perception is reality. If someone else is feeling a certain way and I haven't felt that necessarily, it doesn't mean that they haven't. So in the past, I think I just would have been like, whatever, they'll be fine. But I think, people are getting older, people are getting wiser, people are realizing what their friendship circles want to be and who they want to be around. And I think if I just kept up that way, then I'd probably end up having no friends. And I'd probably have a girlfriend who probably resented me because she's like, you're not giving me any love either and you're not spending any time with me. So yeah, I like I said, it wasn't a very nice realization to have, but it's one that I'm definitely grateful for. A lot of uncomfortable and challenging talks and conversations around that, but I guess if it means something to you, you're going to be willing to have those conversations. You're going to be willing to put yourself into a kind of uncomfortable situation for an hour to 3 hours or an hour to a few weeks of getting through it. And if it's just as important to both parties, then you'll make it work and you'll find a solution to it at the end of the day. Similarly, if it's not as important to me, if I then realize on the opposite hand, like it wasn't important to me, maybe I just let it go and let it be. And but you know what? Well, actually, I didn't want that in my life, and that's okay to let it go.
I feel like this is something that you hear a lot of athletes talk about. Like they reflect back on parts of their careers, or even like the present part of their career, and they kind of say exactly what you said, which is like, I wish I hadn't put just so much time or energy into the sport or the training, and I wish I'd put more time towards the other aspects of my life. But can I ask, do you think now that you've had this realization that the other stuff is actually really important as well, do you think by focusing more on that is going to actually enable you to be a better athlete as well?
Yeah, well, I think firstly, I think it's important to realize that the energy I did put into the athlete side before, I don't regret that. I still would have put in the same amount of effort. It was the amount of effort that I didn't put into the other stuff. So, I think what I did to the athlete side was totally necessary. But I think my reluctance to put other energy into other parts of my life was the problem. And yeah, definitely, I think, you get so caught up in performance, you get so caught up in sucking the 1%ers out of your body for performance that you're like, oh God, having a dinner out and I'd normally be in bed at this time and now I'm an hour later, like that's ruined my performance. I'm not going to do that next time. And then suddenly you lose a social opportunity, you lose a connection with your friend, you lose a connection with your girlfriend, your family, and actually you push that away and you don't think about it. But, if you actually had that connection, maybe it would have made you feel a bit better. And yeah, it's like you learn to find out what's important to you. And I think, I'm lucky that I'm finding that now. It might be 10 more years for some people when they get to 43 and they're like, oh, actually,
maybe never.
Maybe never. Maybe it doesn't matter to them. But yeah, I guess that's also a reflection of the people who I surround myself with, and they have the same sort of talks and conversations. I'm sure if I was in a different environment, where you had a lot of hard charging individuals who didn't think about things outside of the gym, which is not a problem at all, I'm sure I probably wouldn't have had these reflections and like seen the need and importance for that, because I would assume that my life at that time would have been built to allow me to be successful in that environment. So it's just, yeah, your life adapts, you change, and you have to adapt at the same time. Otherwise you get left behind, I guess.
Yeah, so it sounds like in the wake of last competitive season, almost like a re-establishing of what's important to you.
Yeah.
And then now moving forward, like wanting to keep that, as well as the training and the focus on the competition. But I guess another question, which a lot of people will also say, is like, how much do you actually have to give? Right. So what you've talked about is like, you don't regret putting all the time and energy into the competing and the preparation and the training. But you'd wish you'd put more time and energy into social relationships, your
Yeah.
girlfriend, work. Do you think that reflecting back, did you have that available energy to be able to give more to that? Or will, if you put more towards the other stuff, is that going to take away from potentially the training?
It definitely can. It can definitely take away from it and detract from what you're wanting to do. But at the end of the day, again, the people I surround myself with, generally speaking, want me to achieve my goal. So it's all about understanding that other person's expectations and that other person understanding my expectations of what I can provide and what I can't provide. For example, I know like Tammy wanted more from me once I'd finished my season. So that basically finished at last chance qualifier. And I know that she felt that she didn't get that from me because, I went to Chicago and I went to Madison with Lee. And I, it's hard to communicate with. It was like a 15-hour time difference and it was tough. But if I wanted to, I could have made it work. And I just didn't see that yet until she explicitly told me, I expect now to have like 2 to 3 conversations with you a week. Whereas before it's just like, oh, if you have time, then it's okay. And like we were both kind of wishy-washy about it. There was no black and white. And as soon as she put it down in black and white, there's no gray area anymore. It was like, right, okay, well, here are the times that I can do. I know it sounds like pathetic and regimented and ridiculous, but sometimes it has to be like that, especially when you're in a different time zone, or else it is easy to forget. So once you can understand the expectation, you can either say it straight up, sorry, I can't meet that expectation. Can we try and meet in the middle? Or it's like, yeah, of course I can do that. Definitely. I just didn't realize that's what you needed. So that's what I needed to do. So now that I can understand that sort of stuff, it's much easier for me to be able to handle and juggle that sort of stuff.
Yeah, just clear, honest communication.
Yeah.
Sometimes is what's necessary.
Yeah.
Sometimes the wishy-washy stuff works and it's enough, but sometimes you just got to be blatant to the point.
Yeah. Well, I think the wishy-washy stuff works if it really isn't that important. Like if it's just like, oh, like do this, do that, it doesn't really matter.
Or how to understand wishy-washy conversation.
Yeah. But a lot of the time, people are not honest with what they want, and when they're not honest, then they're gonna end up like they literally leave the first conversation with like some sort of like, oh fuck, I wish I said something, or I wish I just said that because it's not gonna get done, or whatever it might be. And obviously the deeper you go into a relationship with someone, the more you can understand that. If it's just like first up again, like you just met someone, it's like, it's all right, just he didn't do it or she didn't do it, it doesn't matter. But if you've known that person for 10, 20, 30 years, you're like, all right, this is what I need from you now, because I know this is what you can provide. And it's just easier from there.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the evolution of communication between two people as time and the relationship evolves. You just get clearer and you know how the other person, what the other person responds best to, and when you actually need to be direct and to the point. Can I ask you about the next chapter then?
Yeah.
So then, when we last spoke, Lee was about to go compete at the CrossFit Games. You guys were in Chicago already.
Yeah.
We've had Lee on the podcast. She gave a really great rendition of the whole experience. I know you have your own rendition of the experience as well, but kind of sticking with the theme of like realizations or epiphanies or learnings. Was there anything from that chapter specifically, like finishing last chance qualifiers and then essentially just being a coach to someone at the CrossFit Games?
Yeah, I mean, that was being a coach at CrossFit Games, and this is no disrespect to Lee at all, but like that was the most stressful, the most stressful thing I've ever been through. Like, I genuinely felt like I had someone else's 100% of their responsibility and 100% of their outcome and process all on my shoulders, but I couldn't control any of that because I'm not the person doing it. And like, I actually felt like you for a day where like I couldn't bend my knees, couldn't move my toes and fingers without like actual severe pain. And I was like, holy shit, like what the fuck is going on in my body? Couldn't understand it. And that basically lasted for like an entire week. From basically the second we touched down in Madison, like even driving a car was like quite uncomfortable.
And that was just information from just
I was trying to train, but I couldn't train. I literally, there's zero chance of me hitting a squat. And if I did, it was like an air squat at best. And like a strict pull-up was about all I could muster up, and some bicep curls every now and then. A dumbbell press actually even hurt my shoulders and wrists. So like that was incredibly stressful. But it's again something that I was willing to do, and it was something that I wanted to do. So it was amazing that the result that came from it. And myself and Lee have caught up since then and been like, all right, well, what can we work on for next season? And there's been things that we've already said and put in place, and said that this is something we'd like to work towards to make the experience better for both of us going forward, and something that can make her a better athlete and make me a better coach at the same time. So but yeah, I think the realization was that being a coach can be extremely stressful. It just depends on, again, what you're willing to give. I think when you look around the athlete area
and what the athlete needs,
and that's the thing. So the expectation is like, what do you need from me? And basically what Lee needed from me was everything I could give, which is fine. Like, that's what I was there for. Like, I'd probably be upset. She's like, I don't need anything. Just sit on the side and watch me. And if you need to say anything, say something. It was literally like, get my bar out, load my bar up, put the clips on, tell me exactly what to do. Tell me exactly the time I need to go out. When I go out, tell me exactly the strategy I need to do. When I finish my competition, tell me my exact cool down. Find my shake for me. Tell me when to drink my shake. When do I eat? When do I need to be here for? And I was like, holy shit. It's basically I'm competing and I'm also coaching at the same time. And I've never had that much on my plate before. But again, like, I was willing to do that. It's not like, oh, you want me to get your bar out? Fuck's sake. Like, oh, fine, I'll get your bar. It's like, yeah, fine. Like, I want to see you like come on the top of the podium. So like, listen, if that's what you need, just tell me. Like, please. It's only 3 days of competition. Like, fucking whatever. But yeah, like, that was like, looking back, I was like, holy shit, that was a lot of energy spent. And I'm doing a lot of steps in a day, and it's fairly physical, moving around the whole time. And the amount of like stress and like shouting and screaming and like clenching my fist and trying to organize her family as well as her at the same time, because she's a bloody donut and didn't get a SIM card. So I ended up being the middleman between her and her family. But like, end of the story, like, it was an amazing journey. And one which I have zero regrets about. And, again, like, the people back in Hong Kong who supported me on that journey, like, very thankful and grateful for those people, but also Lee for allowing me to be a part of her journey. So yeah, let's hopefully do it all again this year.
I want to just go back to like the pain and the joints and the knuckles and all that. Because obviously you're not someone who is completely new to stress.
Yeah.
Like, you're also an athlete yourself. You've been in that exact arena. But clearly there was something different in this new role, or in this capacity, or in this situation, that manifested itself differently in your body.
Yeah.
And for those listening, like, who can't connect the dots on this, is that we know that stress can come from many, many different places, and the way that stress exhibits itself in the body can be variable. It can be, for some people, they get lightheaded. For some people, they get loss of appetite. For some people, it's cold sweat, sweaty palms. Some people, they break out in rashes. Some people, like for myself, like, it's joint pain, tension, stiffness, tightness.
Yeah.
So what was it about this new role? Was it just that there was so much going through your mind all day? Was that the sole contributor towards it? Because I know that the physical amount of exertion you're doing was way less than what you would typically do in a training day.
Yeah.
So what do you put it down to?
I think I put it down to the fact that I was trying to, as much as I possibly could, control every outcome of her journey as possible. Whereas when I'm on my own journey, I relinquish the outcome and I just focus on the process. I was trying to focus on the process and the outcome at the same time. Because, again, no disrespect to Lee, but a lot of the time she wasn't aware of the possible outcome, which for me, I'm like, you can take first. You can take a second here, or like, you should definitely be in the top 5 because there's only 10 people competing. But for her, she's like, oh, like, I'm so scared I'm going to come last in this. I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, like, you got to fucking wake up to yourself. Like, you're going to crush these ladies out there. I'm thinking to myself, this event is made for you. Like, I'm trying to give her the perfect strategy to allow her to finish as best as possible. And in my head, I'm like, that's a first place. I know it is. I know I'm looking around at this field, like, these people cannot execute that movement like you can. You got to go and do this. And she's sitting there going, like, I'm going to take last. So like, me trying to like relay that message across to someone that doesn't understand their potential and capability, and they have no, it's like, I don't know if she talked about this on her podcast, but in terms of self-belief, she didn't really have much of that. So I was like constantly trying to give her that, constantly trying to pump her up, and like, that gets tiring as well.
Yeah. Because
if I slip, that could be like very detrimental to my athlete as well. If I say like, yeah, fuck you, you're actually crap at that. And she goes, oh shit. And like, I don't think I ever did that. But if that did happen, like, that could be like catastrophic to a performance over a weekend.
So it's kind of like extra stress, feeling like you're walking on eggshells on trying to
and just trying to
deliver the perfect message and not push it too far. And
like, when you're an athlete, you can basically switch off. You know when you need to switch on, you know when you switch off. But for her, like, and she'll tell you this as well. Like there was a lot of time changes that happened throughout the weekend. There were weather delays, there was equipment delays, there was change of venues. Events got put from one day to the other, and like I'm running back and forth, like trying to give her this information without her having to run back and forth, and like that's a lot. And she's stressed, then I get stressed, and I'm trying to tell her calm down, but actually I'm fucking freaking out inside and like, oh shit, like this is gonna derail her. I warmed her up. I remember I warmed her up for an event. We're literally ready to go into the corrals and onto the competition floor, and they're like, you gotta wait for 45 more minutes. I'm like, fuck. She's basically just done a whole event in that warm up. Now I need to bring it back down. And I could see like she was distraught, like, fuck, what do I do? What do I need to do? And then the athlete area got really busy again, and like that sort of stuff. Like again, when I'm an athlete, I feel like I'm in total control of that stuff, and it doesn't bother me. But as soon as I was viewing another athlete do it, and she didn't quite know what to do, I felt like I had to try and control the process and the outcome for it.
Yes.
Which is that's probably just like double the stress.
I think as well, something to add some more context to the situation is that you had just finished a really long season as well.
Yeah.
You know, you'd gone to Korea, you competed. And any time you add flying into the mix, like that's a massive added stressor. Whether you hate flying or you like flying, like just the process of it, like looking for your flight, making sure you don't miss your flight, being in a cramped up space, you know, air conditioning, air quality in the air. You were sleeping on a sofa.
Yeah.
So you had like less than ideal sleeping conditions.
I got robbed.
You got robbed. You just recovered from COVID. You just done the last chance qualifiers.
Yeah.
So, you know, there was like cumulatively, I think, a lot of other stresses that had kind of not set you up necessarily for success.
Yeah.
And then you had this really big weekend. And you know what, honestly, I haven't told you this yet, but hearing you say like, I'm fucked and I haven't done anything, like I can hardly walk down the bleachers without my knees hurting. I was kind of like, this is good. I'm glad that you're actually experiencing it because, you know, you're actually one of those very, very resilient people that can handle a lot of stress. You know, you and I can do the same thing, have the same perception of stress to that thing, and I would be in a wheelchair and you'll be sprinting away happily with a smile on your face.
Yeah.
So I think it was, do you think it was a good experience, like to actually go through that and feel it? Like, has that changed your, I don't know, your perception of stress or I guess understanding maybe when other people.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess, you know, I never experienced my body in that state firstly. So like, you know, I have a fairly positive outlook when it comes to stress, and I can accept a lot of it that happens, whereas other people can't. They start to worry about things.
You don't make stress more than it actually is. You're very good at that.
Just accept it what it is.
The perception of stress, I think, is something.
Yeah, well, stress doesn't exist really. So,
so this is.
No, I don't know. It's just knowing that the body can get to that stage, without really much physical exertion, which is what I'm generally used to. You know, and on that as well, I had like quite a lot of emotional stress from the conversation, the podcast that we had, and then the conversations following that as well. So yeah, I guess that was probably the most stressful point of my life. Maybe you can say.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, there's no regrets on it, and that's just how the season panned out, and that's just how it is. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Like I just accept it for what it is. I'm not going to work out that week, so whatever. Actually, I actually trained with your old coach, Carl Ruth.
Carl.
And we went into a gym and he just shouts out 5x5 deadlifts to me. I was like, okay, sure. We ended up going to like 200 kg. And then after that, he wanted to do like 5x5 power cleans. I was like, oh, fuck.
Did Kyle hit 200 for 5?
Well, no, I think he got to 180 and then did 3, then needed straps. And then asked for my belt as well.
Yes, Carl.
But then we went to power cleans, which he's much better at me at, and I was literally like, oh God, my wrist is so sore right now. So like trying to do like power cleans with him was horrendous. That was the only time I touched a barbell in the whole time at the games. Couldn't squat. He tried to make me do squats and I had to actually use a heel elevation to squat. And yeah, I just sat on machines otherwise.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, since getting back to Hong Kong, how's that been?
Yeah, like I said, there's a bit of anxiety around it from the conversations I've been speaking about in the past. But once I got back, it just felt like I'd never left.
It felt like that to us as well, in a really good way.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. Yeah, it felt like I kind of slotted straight back into life with the company, with my relationships, and yeah, it felt easy. It felt nice actually because when I left Hong Kong was in the shitter. The gym was closed. We had another 2 months of closure minimum ahead of us. Masks were everywhere and you couldn't take it off, and we were getting constant checks from the police, and we couldn't train outside, and my training was screwed, my client's training was screwed, the rest of the team was all messed up. Tammy was stressed, I was stressed, parents were like hiding from COVID. So like coming back and it actually seeming quite normal was really nice to have, which I wasn't really expecting. I was hoping for it, but I wasn't expecting it. So that was actually quite nice to have. And, people still look at my Instagram, but I can't believe you're wearing a mask. I'm like, it's actually not that bad. Like we can get away with walking around and stuff. And you just got to respect people that want to wear a mask and whatever. But yeah, coming from like US and Dubai, it was a bit of a shock, I guess, to start with, that I didn't have to wear a mask over there. But then coming back to here, it's been fine. So yeah, settled in really quickly.
What were the biggest things? I mean, I only went away for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I felt like coming back, there was a lot of things I had to like get back into, I wouldn't even say routine, but just, I guess from being on a holiday and like letting go of a lot of routine and structure and, not doing work to then coming back into it. I recorded a whole podcast talking about 10 reflections from holiday, but was there anything for you like coming back that was hard to transition back into? Or did you feel like you just slotted straight back in?
Yeah, though, honestly, it wasn't that much that was hard. I was still working quite a bit when I was in Dubai. I was on my laptop a lot, and I was still doing, a lot of admin hours when I was over there. I was still coaching people on Zoom. So I think the only thing that was maybe a bit strange was running a group class again. I hadn't done that in bloody ages. So doing that was a bit...
How far over did you go in your first one?
I didn't actually.
What?
No, I didn't.
So you actually got better at group class coaching, having not done it.
But the second class on that same day I went over.
Nice.
So yeah. No, but I think it was... I don't think there's anything, honestly, that was difficult. Yeah, it was honestly pretty easy.
Well, let's talk about training.
Yeah.
Because obviously 6 months on the road, you pretty much had no obstructions to your training. You had two periods a day, AM and PM sessions where exclusively you were training, and then I guess you had small bouts of work between that, but really like a lot more freedom. How's it been coming back now, training with similar volume, but obviously you've got work around? I feel like you've really changed quite a lot of things in terms of like the structure of your day, the approach to your work days. Let me in on that.
So I don't know if the listeners know, but obviously at Coastal we've changed the payment structure and the work structure of all the staff here. So we're all on full-time salaries now, with much more specific KPIs of what we need to be doing and the hours need to be hitting and all that sort of stuff. And I think that structure has allowed me to then organize my schedule and my clients in a certain way that I have enough to hit my hours, but I also have enough time outside of the gym to be able to do the other things I need to do. So for example, I'm like the head of merchandise at the moment. And with that, obviously I need quite a lot of admin hours to be able to talk to people in China, and our merchandise guys are in Hong Kong. So I need time away and I need to do all the what up stuff and whatever it might be. It's allowed for me to create more structure around my day. I try not to work the evening clients, which I used to, which basically used to put me out. I used to be here till like 7:30, 8:30 p.m. at night, cycle home, wouldn't be having dinner till like 9:30 at night, and then I have to be up again the next day for a 6 o'clock client. So I've basically been able to wipe that out, and again, very grateful that my clients are able to mix and match around my schedule. But I do have a really good batch of clients now, which are quite close knit for me.
Yeah, you coached most of them for a really long time as well.
Yeah, I think almost all of them for over 5 years now, which is really cool. And feeling quite successful with it. It allows me time in my day to do my training still for an AM and PM split. It allows me still a bit of time to have my lunch with team meetings and all that sort of stuff in there. But I still have to be on top of it. I can't just kick back and relax. When I'm in the gym, I'm generally doing something. I'm not just, I think before I had quite a few dead hours, and those dead hours just became me just being lazy, doing nothing and not being constructive with my time. So now that I have time in the gym and I have time at home to do my admin work, it's very much set what I need to do on each day. So I feel a lot more regimented with it, and routine feels like it's good for me.
Because we have talked a lot about the restructuring on the podcast,
Yeah.
So I'm sure a lot of our listeners will know the general gist of what we've done and why we've done it. What are the roles? You mentioned merchandise. What are some of the other things that you're really focusing on?
So I'm also like a mentor. So we got different levels of coaches in the gym. Myself and Tammy are both mentors to our level 1 coaches. Level 1s are are coaches who are still learning some of the processes at Coastal and on the program. So we're basically there to mentor them through any sort of struggles that they might have, whether that's coaching group classes, whether that's helping out with one-on-one coaching, personal training coaching, whether that is things like, life problems that they might be having, things like scheduling problems, appearance in the gym, all that sort of stuff. So we're there to basically be a shoulder to lean on if they need it. I also have the merchandise. I have WhatUp. So WhatUp is our delivery platform that we give, the software that we give to all of our online subscribers and people in the gym. So it's my job to make sure that is basically tip top all the time. And I know I definitely screw that up sometimes as well. That's also the biggest struggle right now, that don't have my screen because I've been kicked out of my house. So that's a struggle. But otherwise, I think just this whole mentorship role, and I think with the mentorship stuff, something that's been exciting over the last few weeks is that we finally opened the window to do the mentorship stuff now overseas with our affiliates. We've been kind of closed off here in Hong Kong, and we haven't been able to really travel freely because of quarantine and whatnot. But that's pretty much fully disappeared now. So, yourself and myself are going to be flying over to Jakarta, hopefully in January. And I can basically do this mentorship stuff. We can go over and actually start helping our affiliates who are on the process programming. So that's a big role of mine as well, and yours, which is to spread the word of the process programming, spread the way that we coach, help affiliates out, help coach coaches, help coach the coaches in the gyms, and try and get some sort of autonomy across the process affiliates. So we're going to be seeing 3 of those guys in January, which is really exciting. And then hopefully I can get across to the Philippines as well. So that's a big part of my role, which is trying to help out our affiliates as well.
And also Perform, Compete, Elite.
Oh yeah, and also, on top of that as well is spreading the word of our online program, which is our Perform, Compete, Elite. Of course, I do the Elite program myself, but managing athletes firstly as a coach through those 3 programs, of course in-house, but also online as well. So doing a lot of coaching on our WhatUp platform, but also trying to grow the program as much as we can. Growing the program doesn't just come from splashing it on social media. It comes from doing a damn good job with the people who are already signed up to the program, people who are in your gym, people who are at the affiliates. But it also comes down to communication with those guys as well. Finding out what they want. Can we help them? Is there 10 guys in Dubai and the UAE that we can go over and see and just have a quick visit, because something like face-to-face contact is something you just can't replicate over a screen. Growing that program as well is something that is under my job jurisdiction as well. Yeah,
we've got some athlete camps lined up.
Correct.
So we're going to be traveling to Bali on the 21st, 22nd of January next year. And then the next weekend, which would be the 28th, 29th, we're running an athlete camp in Hong Kong. So that's going to be open to anyone and everyone, particularly those, who have an interest in the sport of CrossFit, whether it's, doing the CrossFit Open scaled or, you're trying to get to the CrossFit Games. The goal of these camps is to basically bring together our community and people from outside our community who perhaps want to be a part or experience what we have to offer. This is something that you and I used to do all the time.
Regularly.
Yeah, before kind of COVID kicked off, we were traveling around Asia a lot and running these experiences, which honestly is I love doing that stuff so much. I can't wait to get back out there and do it again. And it's amazing how many people have become a part of our community that we've actually never met or spent any significant time with in person. So a big part of these camps is going to be not just like the education and obviously working out, but just connection and just having a good time people. So I'm stoked to get on the road and do that all again.
Yeah, for sure. So if you're in